We see kids. We see tall kids, we see short kids, we see old kids. And some of you are probably sitting back thinking right now, why do you see kids? And I'll ask you this question. When was the last time that you tried to fit through a 10-centimeter hole? Did you know that only 1/3 of births in America right now are actually natural, true 100% natural births? And instead 2/3 involve medications, forceps, vacuums, surgery interventions. In fact, in that 2/3, about 1/3, depending on the hospital that you go to, are C-sections. And with all those different modifications to a normal birthing process increases the risk. And that risk we can study and we get to see because it comes at a cost. Dr. Freeman did studies. He's an osteopath. And he examined 1,500 children, 1,500, just within 5 days of birth. And he found that 90% of them had birth trauma. 10% completely fine. 10% it would be obvious to the naked eye that these children had problems. The other 80% upon examination, he found restriction and stiffness within the neck and the cranium. Right? Harvard pathologist, Abraham Tobin, was interested also in birth trauma. What he did is he started to analyze these kids, and he found that not only was it common, but it also correlated pretty directly with certain cases of SIDS and respiratory conditions. And then last, but really one of the most important ones, Dr. Gutmann analyzed 1,000 children, and he found that 80% of them had neurologic dysfunctions. He went on to say that not only is this a problem and is it significant, but he also went on to say that it's under-publicized and therefore undertreated. People don't know that it's going on. They just actually think that this dysfunction is normal. And when we say dysfunction, what we're talking about here is pretty common symptoms. There's trouble breathing, reflux, reflux issues, irritability, difficult nursing, difficulty sleeping. This is our classic colicky baby at its extreme, but even at its subtle level, I don't know how many parents I've had come into me and say, my child hasn't pooped for 5 days or a week, and they think it's normal. And if these things aren't taken care of, the problem is that it can actually lead into this last one, is that delayed developmental milestones, the stages of development. And to understand that, you have to understand more of just basic science of anatomy and physiology. You see, your body is made up of trillions of cells. Cells that make up tissues, tissues that make up organs, organs that make up organ systems, and collectively you're an organism. And if you have a problem with the heart, you look to the cells and the tissues of the heart. But if you have a problem with your brain or your spinal cord, your nervous system, you can't look just there because your body is loaded with neurology. Inside your muscles, you have muscle spindles. Inside your tendons, you have Golgi tendon organs. You have neurologic cells that give you information on temperature, on pressure, on visceral function. And what's really important for me is that even your joints are heavily loaded with neurology that give you feedback. In fact, it's like a nutrient. Just like nutrition is a nutrient, healthy motion stimulates brainwave patterns. So proprioception, which is your unconscious awareness of self, just on a subconscious level, it goes up to the brain, goes through this spongy portion in the back of your brain, which is called your cerebellum, where greater than 50% of all your nerves are located. And then it goes off to your frontal cortex, which is where positive thought happens. It goes to your vagus nerve, which is healing and growth. It goes to your hippocampus, which is your learning, concentration, memory center of the brain. And it also goes to your amygdala, which is your stress and anxiety portion of the brain, and it down-regulates the stress response. So healthy motion, exercise, a chiropractic adjustment stimulates positive pathways, just as when you create these misalignments, this trauma, when any of you have dysfunction and pain, it starts to starve the brain of healthy pathways, and it starts to elicit a stress response in the body. Increases adrenaline, increases cortisol levels in the body. And long term, what does this look like? Well, just think about it. Hyperactivity, inability to communicate appropriately. You got sensory issues. A lot of these parents that bring neurodevelopmental kids into us, that's what they're talking about. I've had parents tell me that their kids just couldn't put socks on. It was sensory overload. There's something going on with not just the processing of it in the brain, but how the body's actually getting the appropriate messages. And when we get into the problems with this, I'll tell you, I'm the first one to say that we don't have enough research. We don't have enough research in chiropractic to validate a lot of the information when it comes down to the double-blind cross-controlled trials, and the reason is money. I went to Palmer College of Chiropractic, which is one of the largest chiropractic colleges. There's only 18 in the United States. It also has the largest research facility on its campus. It has an annual budget of around $7 million, which goes nowhere in research. Compare that to Harvard, one of the biggest and the best, and they have hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to do their research. What we do have in chiropractic is this, though, case studies. We have a case where a patient comes in, they get a great response, we write it out, we document it. And it's one thing if you only have one case study to say that's not valid, but we have hundreds of thousands of case studies across not just the country, but across the world at this point of these kids that are coming into us. What I want you to know are just three simple things. First of all, chiropractic is not a cure. We don't really treat these disorders. I have kids that I've helped with seizure disorders, but I'm not a doctor that specializes in seizure disorders. Instead, what a chiropractor does is relies on the fact that your body is self-healing and self-regulating. You have a doctor within you. Every one of us has a doctor within us. We're programmed to be well. We just want to set things in motion so that your body functions appropriately. The second thing is this. We actually see a lot of kids. It's one of the biggest misconceptions that you may think that chiropractic is just about back pain and old people with arthritis. I don't know how many people I've had come into me and say, you must be doing great, there's so many seniors around here. And the reality is there's a 2010 job analysis survey and found that we actually see in the profession more kids 17 and under than 65 and older. We're already seeing a lot of kids. Again, it's under-publicized, and therefore the public doesn't know that they should be sending their kid to a chiropractor. The last thing that's really important, I think, is that chiropractic is safe. We've got an insurance agent in here, and I would say that if anybody's going to take a study and say how safe something is, it's going to be an insurance company. My auto insurance costs about the same as my malpractice insurance. And I guarantee you, if it was a high risk for you to bring a child to me, my insurance would cost a heck of a lot more than what my auto insurance would cost. I need help. These kids need help. And the only way we're going to get it out there is publicize it. You need to share the message with me. You know, tell your friend, we're going to post this video on Facebook. Share it on your Facebook page. Let everyone know about it. Refer somebody to me if it's out of the city, out of the state. I really think this is almost like the cancer of the future. You know, to some degree, it's like we all know somebody that has cancer or has gone through cancer. Well, at this point, it's like 1 in 5 kids have a psychological disorder, according to the CDC this past year. 1 in 5 kids. And that goes into that category of ADD, ADHD. It's almost like every one of us knows one of these kids that really should at least see if chiropractic could be something that could help them out. How many kids have to suffer how much longer? Questions?